physical health issue.
Right. Although there was a little backwash, so just be careful. Good morning, Dr. Couch. We're glad to have you on campus here at Cleveland State Community College and to have you in front of the selection committee. My name is Tom Griscom. I'm the chair and I'm on the Board of Regents. I live in Chattanooga. And what I'd like to do is to have our committee members introduce themselves and tell you a little short thing about who they are and why they're on the committee. Starting with my left, your right, we'll start with Quentin.
I'm Quentin Murray. I'm student representative, and I'm also the student senate president here at Cleveland State. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Good morning. I'm Alan Gentry. I'm the chair of the technology department and faculty representative.
Good morning, I'm Kim Wills. I'm the front desk manager for our Enrollment Services Center, and I'm the staff senate president.
I'm Jerry Richt. I'm an optometrist and an alumni representative.
I'm Ward Nichols, Vice Chancellor for Community Colleges.
And John Morgan, Chancellor of the Tennessee Board of Regents.
Good morning, I'm Howard Roddy, member of the Tennessee Board of Regents and a vice president at Memorial Healthcare System in Chattanooga.
I'm Gary Farlow. I'm the president of the Cleveland Bradley Chamber of Commerce and the business community representative.
Good morning, I'm Coleman Foss. I'm the president of the Foundation for Cleveland State as well as president of the local hospital.
Hi, I'm Michael Stokes. I'm Vice President for Student Services at the college, and I'm an administrative representative on the committee.
Matthew Talbert, Faculty in Psychology and also Faculty Senate President.
I'm Nancy Thomas. I'm nursing faculty and a faculty representative.
Karen Wyrick, Math Department Chair and Faculty Rep.
I'm Patty Weaver, Director of Dr. Sites and the Professional Staff Representative.
Again, let me welcome you, Dr. Couch, and the time we'll have this morning. We've got a set of questions we will ask you. We hope that, and we've been able to in the previous two, have enough time for you to ask us questions that you may have before we conclude our session this morning. And I'm going to start with the first one. As we've all seen your resume and had a chance to sort of go through it and talk to some of your references, and those have been shared with us. So tell us 2 or 3 things out of that background, of your background, that you really think are important for us to focus on, that really talk more about you, your leadership style, what you would bring to Cleveland State.
Well, first, let me thank you for having me on campus. I'm excited about being here and learning more about the great things that are happening here at Cleveland State, and have the opportunity for you to learn more about me and my interest in the position. Obviously, I have a extensive career in higher education and primarily focused in community colleges. And over that 29, 30-year career, that to pull out 2 or 3 things, gets a bit hard, I guess. But I would point to a couple things that come to mind. One is in 2007, Washington Monthly did the first ever ranking of community colleges. In many cases, you see Princeton Review and other kinds of reviews where they rank institutions, typically universities or colleges, first ever in community colleges. In that ranking, where I worked at the time, Southwestern Community College was ranked number 4 in the nation. And that was quite a distinction, and that was clearly a point of pride for the institution. And in 2007, there's been lots of attention given to success models now in terms of trying to change the paradigm from just access to success for student success. But I would submit in 2007, we were engaged in those kinds of best practices for student success then, and that was illustrated by that ranking. And the next question, you're like, well, what is that? How did they achieve that ranking? They have since done it a second time, and we were ranked number 9, I think, the second time. And so that was centered around graduation rates and retention rates. And so those are things that I think were pretty powerful then, that illustrate some of the kinds of work that was happening on a daily basis. And if you were to say, was there one unique thing that you were doing at Southwestern that kind of moved you to that distinction? I'd say probably not. I would submit it's kind of like a patchwork quilt. There's lots of patchwork pieces that make the entire, and woven together led to a pretty powerful result. And so we were doing things like mandatory orientation, intrusive advising, and support services for students once they got to into programs, and try to develop those success models that were recognized and pretty powerful and pretty effective. And so, I would point to that. The second piece I would say is I have, over that 30-year career, been very involved and had the opportunity to be to work closely with SACS and reaffirmation. Over my career, I've led three reaffirmation processes, 2 at my previous work, and now at my current employer at Alamance Community College. And as you're aware, that's an opportunity for you to look at all of your processes, A through Z, and gives you an opportunity to see where you are and areas for improvement. And as a result of that, you get to learn the institution in ways that that many do not. And so, as a result of that, and if you operate off the premise that SACS represents good practice in higher ed, as a minimum, then if you support that and embrace that notion, and that it's not something that somebody else is doing to us, but it's an opportunity for us to improve and be the best that we can be. And so, I take pride in that work. That that as you well know, obviously I would consider myself a subject matter expert in SACS, and so, but as a part of that, people have looked to me to provide that leadership across the campus for those initiatives. And as you know, SACS is a kind of a big deal. And you got to get that right. You got to give time and attention to it, and you want to give it serious consideration and work at it in a way that yields positive results. And so I've had the opportunity to lead 3 college-wide initiatives for reaffirmation that I'm pretty proud of. Thank you.
Alan?
Dr. Couch, why are you interested in the Cleveland State presidency, and why do you feel you might be the best candidate?
For some time now, I've kind of been on the pathway for a presidency. It's kind of a goal and a direction, and that's something I've wanted to do and kind of migrated toward that direction. I've done the things that I think would prepare me to move to the next level, senior level leadership. I had anticipated that would occur at Southwestern Community College. It didn't, and and our sons were growing up, and I was happy there, and that didn't work out. And so Chattanooga, looking at everything, Cleveland, looking at everything that about the college and the institution, seems to be a good fit. The size of the institution, the location of the institution, the type of programming, everything about it feels good to me. And I would, I said I want to be a president. I'm not applying for presidents all over the country. That's not something I want to do. There are jobs all over the country. I don't apply for them. I don't want just to be a president to be a president. I want to be a president where I'll be successful, I'll feel good about it, I'll be happy, and I can add value to an institution. And looking at this and doing my research and talking to people, it seems like it would be a good fit for me. And I can add, I feel that I've got the background and the skills and the ability to add value to the work that's going on here at Cleveland State. So, in terms of why I would think I would be the best, obviously, if you've got candidates that reach this level, everybody's capable. They've done good things, but I think it's up to you to determine, for you, the right fit. What feels right to you? Obviously, in terms of technical and experience, I would match my background against anybody in terms of student success models and understanding operations. Obviously, the presidency is a complex position. You've got to know a lot of stuff about a lot of things, and you've got to be able to communicate that in a way that's pretty effective. You've got to be an outstanding communicator. And you've got stakeholder groups, internal, external, and you've got to be able to balance that. You've got to have the energy to do that. And I think I have all of those capabilities and qualities that would be a match and a fit and be a success for this institution.
In follow-up to that question, you've already mentioned that you feel like you have been on a pathway to being a president. Despite the outcome of this particular presidential search, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? As far as both professionally, I guess, and just your values, personal values.
Geez, that's a tough question. I'd really like to be in that corner office down there, and that's where I've got 30 years in higher ed. I'm 52. I've got a lot left in the tank, and I'm not ready to hit the golf course just yet. I'm not a big golfer. I've got clubs. I'm more of a tennis player. I don't know why I chose golf. It just seemed like more of the paradigm that you go to the golf course when you retire, but nonetheless. So I think I have a lot to give. And now if it doesn't materialize here, I don't know what tomorrow brings. It will be in a senior level position, hopefully a presidency. But again, it would have to be the right fit. There's, as many of you know, if you looked right now, there are positions all over the country, and I'm not applying to Portland, Oregon. I don't want to be there. This is where I want to be, and it fits for my family and what's important to me and my values and those kinds of things. And so, you're going to be hard pressed to get me to answer clearly what I'm going to be doing 10 years from now. Does anybody else in here know what they're going to be doing from 10 years from now? I hope it's good things, and I hope I'm still alive and engaged, and I may be playing with grandkids. Who knows? But I do know I have a lot to offer, and I know Carl stayed for 17 years. I don't know. Heck, I may stop at 15 or 16. Who knows? But I do have a lot left to give.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit about the staff who have reported to you in your current position or your last position, and how are you organized, and how did you work together with staff?
Currently, I'm the executive vice president at Alamance Community College, which is located in the Triangle or Triad region of North Carolina. We're kind of a mid-sized college in the 58, and I have three deans of a dean of curriculum, a dean of student services, and a dean of Con Ed that report to me. And so I have, and then I have 4 associate deans, all the academic programming. And so I have responsibility for all instruction, credit, non-credit, and student services from inquiry through graduation and beyond. And obviously have deans in those areas. And we have administrative council that we meet weekly. And I'm a firm believer in team. And I shared with them that my idea is that we get the best answer, whether it's mine, yours, or somewhere in between, or a combination of that. And one of the things that I shared with my leadership group is that I want somebody that cares about what they do, and cares about student success and engaged in that work, and it's excited about doing it and pretty happy about doing it. I've yet to see anybody that was just absolutely miserable in their work that was good at it. I'll challenge you that to share it. Give me an example that says, if you're miserable at what you do and you're good at it, I'd like to see it. I've never seen it. And so I think I challenge our group to enjoy what we do, take our work seriously, but enjoy it in a way that's positive and productive, and you feel good about it. And obviously we get paid to come here and do this kind of work, but still we need to feel good about it on a daily basis. And I think our group, I provide the leadership and as a role model for the kinds of things in terms of systems and processes that lead to student success. And I think everybody needs to feel connected to what they do in a way that I think moves the institution forward. And I think we all want to feel special. Is anybody in here doesn't? Right? And so it's my responsibility to create that environment that says, we're in this together. We have different roles, different positions in the institution, but as a result of that, we're all moving forward. We're all on the same team, and we're about student success. And so hopefully I provide that leadership and create that environment for that to occur and feel good about the successes that we're having. So.
What would the people who work for you say about the kind of leader you are?
I think they would say I'm terrific. I say that kiddingly, sort of. But I think they would say that I'm good at what I do, that I care about what I do. I'm a hard worker. I grew up on a farm in Southwest Virginia, one of 5 children. If you've ever grown up on a farm, you understand the value of hard work. Has anybody in here grown up on a farm? Tobacco, cattle? I remember in college one time I'm taking a little trip here, but we were studying, and my roommate said, "Gosh, it's hard." And I said, "Fella, you don't know what hard is. When you're putting up hay and working in tobacco, that's hard." And so I've inherently got a work ethic that says, I'm typically the first one there and typically the last one out, but in a healthy way. and that says that I do work hard. I care about what I do. And that I understand, as I said, higher ed and senior level leadership, there are a lot of complex components to it. And you got to be on top of it. You got to understand budgets and finance and how all that fits together. You have to understand accreditation and the standards associated with that. You have to understand teaching and learning, and then you have to understand people. You have to you have to put all those pieces together. And I think I see how all those pieces fit together. And in a way that says, let's be excellent at what we do. I don't think mediocre inspires anybody. Does anybody get excited about, say, hey, let's see if we can be pretty mediocre on this project? I think excellence does excite people and say, let's leave it better than we found it.
Given your experience, what would you consider to be the essential components of a strong and effective community college administrative team?
Some of that I've talked before. I think you have to know what you're doing in terms of subject matter experts. You have to understand clearly how if you're an academic officer or if you're a business officer, you're a student development officer, if you're a student development officer, and you've got to know what FERPA is. You have to know the components of that. And so obviously you have to have content, subject matter that you understand and feel good about and are competent in what you're doing. Earlier I said, again, I challenge anybody, that you have to be excited about that work and understand that you're making a difference in people's lives in a way that's pretty powerful. You know, it's a game changer. And the reason anybody comes here, it is to improve the quality of their life. To improve their quality of life through education is to learn and get a skill or degree that moves them and their family forward. And so when you think of it that way, you know, that's important stuff. And so, you know, and then the other part of that is we all have to work together and enjoy that work and enjoy each other.
Okay, you know, in every organization you have individuals that maybe don't perform well. Of course, we don't have any of that here at Cleveland State. Everybody's high performance. That's great.
Everybody's
But-
above average, right?
Right. So, but how would you deal with somebody that doesn't quite get the job done?
Well, as I said, over a 30-year career, unfortunately, you run into some of those. I mean, that's just the nature of leadership. And, you know, I've said lots of things that are positive, but sometimes, you know, when we deal with people, everybody doesn't come to the table with the same commitment and or competence relative to where they are. I think the key part of that is processes and systems on the front end to identify the very best person for the position. And then if someone isn't really making the grade for whatever reason, I think there has to be opportunities to try to discern with the supervisor and others to see why is that. Is it a competence issue, and are there staff development opportunities that may make a difference for that individual that would be positive and move them forward, or is it just a commitment issue? They don't have the same level of commitment that we would want for that position. Once you identify, you know, where it is and, you know, where the breakdown is, and I think everybody should have the opportunity to be happy. And sometimes that may be elsewhere. And so you obviously, I'm sure we have processes and systems in place to identify corrective action, corrective behavior. But one of the things that, as a leader, you have to have courage. And sometimes it takes courage to say, here's the right thing that you need to do, and here's what we need to do. And I've clearly had to experience some of those things through my career, and I have yet to see anybody that they understood it. It was not a shock. It was not a surprise. It wasn't one of those big dramatic ordeal kinds of things. They understood it, recognized it, and everybody moves forward in a better situation as a result of that. But unfortunately, that's why we have a human relations department, that, you know, you get people together and there are conflicts and other kinds of things that you just have to work through. It's part of leadership, and you just recognize that for what it is.
Could you tell us what we might expect from you during your first 90 days as president?
Do you like my 7-point plan?
Sure.
I was just kidding about the 7-point plan, but I'd say I would, in general terms, I would respond this way. Obviously, I need to learn the institution, and I need to know people and programs and the systems, and I would submit those first 90 days, I'm learning a lot. And as part of that, I'm learning the institution, I'm learning the community, and I'm learning the Tennessee Board of Regents and the systems and all those things, how all the pieces fit together. I've got to get that in a hurry, and there's no messing around when it comes to that. I've got to get that. And, obviously I've spent 20, almost 29 years of my career in North Carolina. I can tell you everything there is about North Carolina. It really doesn't do a lot of good right now about that. But I do figure out things quickly. And as a result of my SACS work and other kinds of things, I have the opportunity. I just got back 2 weeks ago from Texas. And so, you have the opportunity to review and see other state systems and see how those pieces fit together. But there's no question, I've got to learn people, programs, processes, people inside the institution, outside the institution, and these gentlemen up here. I've got to know and learn where they are. And so, and here's the reality. Here's the reality of that. And when I say that, I'm just not coming to work every day and quote studying and learning and listening tours and those engaging people. Work, while all that's happening, work has to happen because the institution just doesn't stop and hit pause for 6 months while I'm learning the institution, right? I mean, things continue to move forward, and so that's where, and I also, my leadership team. I spend a lot of time with those folks to making sure that we're getting connected in a way and discussing our values around where we are in student success and those kinds of things, that our values are aligning, and so that as things do come up that will be occurring in that first 90 days, that we're all together. I can promise you this, that I just didn't think about, maybe I'd trot in here and I have given considerable time and preparation and thought and talked to others about being a president and what I would do and how to do it, almost to the point that it's scary, to the point that how much preparation. I've almost listened to every kind of book there is, and I spend a lot of time driving, and so I've listened to every kind of leadership books on tape and other kinds of things like that. It's one of those things that it's a lot of work, a lot of energy and effort, but I think it's an investment in the future of the institution. I'm still trying to figure out the pattern of how y'all are going, and I don't have it yet.
You don't either.
I'll give up on that. I'll let that go.
It's not going to get better. Cleveland State Community College, like other colleges, has many constituencies with whom it must communicate effectively. Given that there are perhaps different need-to-know aspects for different stakeholder groups, how would you go about assuring common understanding of Cleveland State's current issues and prospects for the future?
In my career, I've worked for several presidents. I've seen lots of things that have been pretty effective. I've seen some things that haven't been so effective, and that things I won't do. But one of the things that, when I hear that question, and probably 4 presidents ago kind of thing, and we created a board of visitors that brought people to campus, connected to campus, and so we could talk about the great things that are happening here, but at the same time connect to those folks in a way that allows us to hear where they are. Right now, we're at my current position. We're engaged in a strategic initiative, and that I'm leading. And on the 18th, we'll bring in focus groups from the community to hear from them about the things that we can do at the institution in a kind of new levels of service and excellence and those kinds of things. And so, obviously, you're working at a 5-county service area, right? And I came from an institution that had 3 counties, and from my experience on that, you have to be pretty purposeful, pretty thoughtful about engaging those groups in a way that makes sense for them, that they feel connected, and at the same time that you don't overpromise and underdeliver, and that's sensible, it's reasonable, and it's doable. And I heard it said one time, leadership is much like parenting. It's all important, but you don't know what is the most important at the time. And so I've got two sons, one at college, one at home, and I interact with those differently. And so, I would engage folks in a way that I think they feel valued and connected to the institution. Obviously, the president, either good or bad, is typically the face of the institution. I mean, that's just bottom line how it works. I've seen a couple people shake their head. I gather you agree with that. And so I've got to connect with those people. But here's the other part of that is, it's not, obviously I would be, the face of the institution, but I would ask and expect others here to help me put all that together and say, who are the people I need to talk to, because I don't know those names yet, and who's important. And so you do, and a bunch of people behind me I bet do, and that would help and put together that leadership plan and communication plan, and how to what makes sense to connect to those, what groups I need to get in front of that creates that. And people, obviously with the new presidents, obviously Carl is a legend in this area. He's a beloved figure. He's got connections on connections and those kinds of things. And so I would look to embrace that and build on those relationships. And as a new president comes in, they're looking to make a connection, learn who I am, and those kinds of things. And so obviously I would look to connect to those people and build positive relationships with a bright future ahead for the college. And so
Thank you.
It's not something you have to convince people, can I come and speak to you? They're willing and in many cases want you to do that. So
Thank you.
In Tennessee, the ultimate responsibility for policy matters rests with the Board of Regents. Can you describe for us what you believe are the characteristics of an appropriate relationship between the president and the board?
Obviously, again, North Carolina really doesn't help, but it's a different relationship. But I tell you this to provide some context to my experience. We have a local board of trustees, but at the same time, we also have a state board. And so, and Chancellor Morgan, I'm sure you know Scott Rawls and very well, and work closely with him. And so there are, in some cases, policies that are driven at the state level. Said, here is something we have to do, you need to do, and you implement it locally. And so that's not a whole lot different than the relationship here, even though it's another level. And so there are initiatives at the state level that we respond to and engage in, like our state is, I know y'all have worked extensively in the redesign of your developmental math and have received lots of notoriety for that. Our state is doing that in the entire system, all 58 institutions. And so it's a state level driven initiative in many cases, in that case, that we all kind of figure out and plug into. As my responsibility of communicating with Chancellor Morgan and Dr. Nichols in terms of explaining the uniquenesses or the things that we need to do here and that advocate for Cleveland State. And so that they have appreciation and understanding of the things that are happening here locally, that this new initiative or policy and how that would impact us, hopefully in a positive way. And if there are negative implications, I've got a responsibility to communicate that in a way that makes sense. And not argumentative or anything else, but it's to inform so that it is an informed decision about, have you thought this, that this will have an impact, and we have to plan and figure out how to make that work. And so obviously in that case, I've got to be informed and advocate and communicate how those pieces fit together. But in many cases, once here's the direction, we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Once that decision's made.
Figure this pattern out still. Dr. Couch, you mentioned a lot of your institutional accomplishments, which are impressive. But what are a couple of 2 or 3 of your personal significant professional accomplishments that you've achieved in your career, and why do you see them as significant?
My wife is a second grade teacher, and she went to grade papers. She's not sitting behind me today, but without question, we'd say our sons. Flat out. I get emotional about that. It kind of chokes me up a little bit. It's hard for me to say that. But we have 2 bright sons that are very capable and clearly kind of the shining stars of our lives. So, other kinds of things in terms of, I would say in addition, I've done a lot of work with curriculum development, started a lot of new programs, some unique programs in the state and even nationally. It's a point of pride in some respects, and see how those fit together and create something that's pretty unique and new. Also provide some leadership for the state of North Carolina. They developed 3 centers, and Southwestern was noted for teaching, learning, and leadership. And so we provided the leadership for the entire state and professional development around teaching, learning, and leadership programming relative to that. And so, that's pretty notable, I think. Feel pretty good about that.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Dr. Couch, kind of following along with that, kind of fast forwarding into the future, what would you say that 10 years from now or down when you're leaving this institution, what would you be remembered for?
You started on that 10-year question. I thought you were going to ask me that again. I said, I still don't have the answer for that. It is in a different context, though. Yeah, I give that one a go, maybe a better go of it. That I've added value. That I cared about the institution. It's a better place. Obviously, Cleveland State is an excellent institution. There's no question about that. I've had the opportunity to follow some great leaders in my career and beloved people, and so it's an opportunity to leadership matters. And we kind of have our own kind of uniquenesses about us and kind of how that plays out. If you look at sports, big sports guy, and if you look at coaches and other kinds of leaderships, and you look at Bill Belichick and John Harbaugh and those guys, those are very different people, but they're effective in different ways. And so I think when I leave that you would say it's a better place. I cared deeply about it, and people. It was an exciting time that people were excited about being here. The best ideas won the day, and we're an institution of excellence.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Couch, as the president of this institution, how would you view the relationship between your business financial responsibilities as president and the academic mission of the college?
I mentioned earlier, I think even kind of bleakly, that as a president, you have to understand and appreciate the financial end of the institution. If you don't attend to it, that can get you and the institution in trouble in a hurry. There is clearly, we're in the business of education, and that's changing lives, and we talk a lot about that student success. But at the same time, there is a business model around that work. And so that's important. And so obviously, you've got to be budget-minded and expense kind of focused in some cases, trying to make sure you're managing those expenses, but also look to revenue generation and some of those elements as well. And so all of that fits together in terms of, because if you don't have the money, and I do have some experience relative to some grants and other kinds of things that we would not have been able to start some initiatives without that grant funding. So if you look externally for some grant funding, that may give you the opportunity to say, boy, we would really like to do this for this student success initiative, but we really just don't have the funding at this point or financing to make that happen. And so in many cases, I've been part of 2 Title III grants that brings in some pretty significant dollars to strengthen this, and those are focused around strengthening the institution. And so that obviously you have to have the resources, equipment, and other kinds of facilities for that teaching and learning to occur. And so that you have to attend to those elements.
And one last follow-up with this. Certainly recruitment and retention is essential. And I'm sure in your experience at those institutions that you've come across some best practices that would assist in particularly retention, because the goal in Tennessee is to graduate with higher education degrees. Right now, we're about 32% of the population, and we want to get to 55% by 2025. And it's essential that we stop the revolving door, just recruiting, but that you retain them, they graduate, that sort of thing. And we certainly, I'm sure the institution would look forward after you do an assessment in terms of best practices that would help us take it to the next level. Graduate more.
There's no question that, and I mentioned this earlier briefly, that the focus on community colleges, when you start looking at our completion rates and you compare us to other sectors of higher ed, you almost kind of have to mumble the words a little bit, and what'd you say? And so it's a situation where we don't shout loudly, these are our percentage of graduates, those kinds of things. And especially compared to senior level institutions. And, we've done a lot of work that in our state as well. It's a national thing, there's no question about it, and it's not going away. This isn't one of those things, we'll just hunker down and we'll weather the storm, and 2 years later we'll be on to something else. I don't sense that's where we are. There's a lot of good work, and I think we'd have to be open to those possibilities. The Gates Foundation has put a lot of money in completion by design and other arenas that are researching and identifying those best practices, but there's no question they are out there in terms of identifying students, helping identify those programs, and being very intentional about some of those practices. If you look at Valencia Community College in Florida, they've got significant attention. In fact, I guess it was the Aspire stuff last year, they were noted as the best in the country. And if you look, they do a lot of good things, there's no question about that, but the one thing from my assessment is when you look at their work, they put in those career maps. And that says up front, you're meeting with that student and you're setting and identifying, here's what your program is, here's what you'll be taking, and here's how you're going to get there. They were very intentional about that. And as opposed to the counter to that is, here, you sign up for any and all courses and hope you get to the end with something that works. Obviously we all made it. except I guess you're in process, right? I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, though. We all made it. We figured it out. We did get to the end. Everybody doesn't. And you're like, well, they should be able to figure that out. Well, maybe. The right ones, the capable ones. But we've got that experience and that expertise and that knowledge to help students identify that. And I'll use my friend in nursing, my new best friend. Nursing, if you walk in, they don't say, you tell them pretty much what courses you'll be taking next semester. You don't say, what can I help you sign up for when your advising session, do you? That doesn't happen that way. And use that model. Obviously, it's cohort-based in many cases, and they're high achievers and very committed, and they have a lot of other things that would lead to success. But one of those features around that says, here's what you're taking next semester. Let me sign you up. And that feels, and in some cases, intuitively, you're like, well, that makes sense. And if you start going back, if you think about your graduate programs, when you were in that, you're like, here's what you'll be taking next semester. But there's that kind of, it feels a little odd for us to say, no, let's don't give them a lot of choices, and let's try to, but to be intentional about those pathways that lead to programs and success. And then once we get them here, obviously systems that would support their success while they're here. And in many cases, and obviously one of the things now it's big is the reverse transfer. And we have students that are transferring out, and before they get that degree, and so there's an opportunity for there. But I will say this: the community colleges is involved in doing some work to try to reframe some of those rubrics that identifies those completion rates. Because if you look at the higher ed model right now on Chronicle Higher Ed, the national data says about 20.4. And in terms of completion rates, but I need to say, then you're like, well, how do they get that? They use 100 first-time students, full-time students, and complete 150% of your 3 years of your program. Those and we've got about 5,000 students. I went back and looked of those 5,000 students in that model. That only accounts for about 500 of our students. And so the community college has figured out, and so trying to figure out to redefine that. So try to better identify what a completer is for a community college student. And so there's some work around that, because when that same model is used for the senior institutions as community colleges, as a result of that, we do not fare well.
Thank you.
So I'm going to answer your question you've asked. The order was put together by somebody who's left-handed and a liberal arts major. Okay? So that explains it.
So there is no pattern.
So there is no pattern. I've got a question for you, if I may. There is one thing very unique about Cleveland State. You sit within 30 minutes of another community college in my hometown, Chattanooga. And one of the opportunities and challenges for the person coming into this job is to really sort out and find those points of distinction that separate a Cleveland State from what Chattanooga State is, because it's much larger, has a pretty large footprint. How do you address that? What approach would you take to make sure people understand the very distinctive roles that a Cleveland State will have?
I will reference my North Carolina Community College experience on this, because in North Carolina we have 58, and you can't hardly drive down I-40 with getting 20 miles to seeing the next sign that says Community College X to the right kind of thing. And so that's something that I've lived with essentially my entire career, trying to figure out how to compete and collaborate. But I would submit, obviously, community is in our name. And so we want to make sure that we are the community's college. And I would submit there are probably 3 R's, I think, that kind of get at that. One is relationships, and that we want to connect with people. When they come here, we won't be invitational. We won't be inviting. When a student walks through those doors, and perhaps even to your office, and says, tell me about this, that they are greeted and they are getting service and getting the information in a useful and informative way. And it's about connecting to people early out, and that we do get them to their advisor and we do get them into their program of study, and we do care. And so it's clearly about relationships. The next piece is about rigor. I think that we have to make sure that as a result of those connections, we don't lower the academic bar. That serves no one well for the institution, nor the student, nor the community. We have to make sure rigor is there, whether transferring on to senior institution or going to the world of work. Either way, we have to be the best we can be, and we need to expect that of students. And I think those models work. And relationships and relevance. And the last one is relevance. We've got to, and I think one of the things that a community college does pretty well, but we got to make sure that we're on top of our game when it comes to this, is making sure that our programs match the world, and that they do see those connections that I said earlier, that they're coming here to improve the quality of their life and the quality of their family. That they say, okay, when I get this degree, there's no guarantee. The success doesn't have an address, but we can help you get there. And so I heard that in a marketing scheme I'm playing one time. It just kind of stuck to me. Or you can say, community college, you can stay near and go far. I heard that one too. I like it. And, but it's about making those connections to where you want to be. When I get this degree, these things are possible. And or probable, or at least some percentage that would suggest that. And so we have to nail those three. We've got to connect. We have to have rigor, and we have to have relevance. If we don't have those three, you're right. It's trouble in River City. We have to be on top of our game, and you mentioned Chattanooga, which is 30 minutes away. There's another element to higher ed with the proprietary institutions now. That's, I don't want to say it's a game changer, but it's another variable that we have to attend to, and some of those success models that they're doing. And this is an aside, but Southern New Hampshire University, I think, and I don't know anything about them other than what I'm just saying now, is doing some work in competency-based education. It's probably worth a Google, and they were putting stuff in competency-based education, and a student, they identified some superstar student that went through an associate degree in like 9 months. And I haven't quite figured this out, but they were calling credits badges and different things, and and some unique things like that. But so some of those models are out there that are very different than where we were when we went to school. The other piece, I'll mention this, when we all went to school, again, you're the exception, is when you got a degree, it was pretty much a guarantee you were going to get a job. If you think about it, the game has changed now. The landscape has changed. It's not you get a degree. You got to be marketable. You got to add value. You're competing. And so we have to give those folks the skills they need to meet those meet that competition.
Thank you. Thank you for your answers to our questions. So now let's give you an opportunity to ask us questions that you may have for us.
You asked me what I do in the first 90 days. I'll ask you what I should do in the first 90 days.
Build us a new nursing building.
That doesn't sound self-serving, does it? She's not in nursing, is she? Is there a need for space? Or were you just kidding around?
Both. I think we had about over 100 eligible applicants for the new cohort of the evening class, but we could only take 50, so we could add more. I'd like to see it expanded.
Okay. Other than a nursing building, what would you see?
Besides, of course, we need to grow, and we can grow, new facility. I'll throw it in.
What do you, for the folks that are employed, what do you like best about working here?
I think one of the great things about Cleveland State is that we have a very family atmosphere. We do some community programs, and when we attend those programs, we see a lot of our other staff and faculty who are part of our campus, as well as some repeat faces from the community who come in and take part of that. I think that's a good thing. It's a very supportive place to work. I also think we encourage development. TBR, of course, has put in place where we have tuition assistance if we want to continue our education, but I think that we've done some things here on campus too to encourage that for our staff and for our faculty. I think that's good and supportive.
And I think you'll find a lot of faculty and staff are very student-centered. They want to do things. They work very hard at trying to come up with new ideas and develop those and work for the student.
That's important.
I'd also like to say, as a faculty member, I think that we've been encouraged to be creative and innovative and supported when we've attempted those things, even if they may have not worked out the best way that we hoped. But we have a lot of support, I think, from deans, our VPs, even the president that we have now, in the kinds of things that we think are going to be best for the student success. And that's one of the things that I think is very valuable to me.
I think one thing you'll find too is that we have good students. Now, they're not perfect. They're human beings like the rest of us, but I think we have good students who enjoy being here and respond well to being challenged academically, and really are here to learn and to grow and progress.
What's the toughest thing I'll face if I move forward? What's my number one challenge?
Not sure if it's your number one challenge, but we talked about this earlier, but one of the big issues in this community, and it's not just here, it's in the region, the state, is how do you develop a workforce that's capable of doing the kind of jobs that we're looking at in the future. And we've got a lot of new, very high-tech, advanced manufacturing kinds of companies coming in here. Medical community needs, highly skilled people. So, how do you get at that workforce? One of the areas I think in particular is the population that's already gone through their education system. They've been working for a while. Now they either want to upgrade their skills or they've been laid off and need skills for those kinds of jobs. So I think that's going to be a challenge for the communities. How do we address those future issues of workforce?
That's pretty much a race without a finish line. There's always new things coming that you guys stay on top of, and I'm sure we got bright, capable people here taking high levels of interest to that, right?
Yeah.
I'm still standing.
Do you have other questions for us?
No, I think that I think I've got the rest of the day and another day here tomorrow, so I'm sure I'll have the opportunity to learn more about the institution and the great things that are happening here. So thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you, Dr. Couch. As we finish this interview session, let me just give you an opportunity here at the end if there's anything else you would like to share with us, any summation you'd like to provide before we talk about what the next steps will be.
I'll leave you with a quote from Ben Franklin. Said something to the effect that as well done is better than well said. You're going to have very capable people in here that may say it better than me, but you're not going to find anybody that's going to do it better than me. That we will engage in work that's meaningful and move the institution forward, and I would love to be your next president. This is where I want to be. We'd be excited about the opportunity.
Well, Again, let me thank you for for your interest in this position, for the time you've already spent on campus and in Cleveland. And you're right, there is still a day to go. You will meet with both the chancellor and the vice chancellor later today. The next step after that is the chancellor is going to talk to all of us on this committee individually, get our reaction, and then he will make a recommendation to the Board of Regents, which his goal is to do it before Thanksgiving. So that is the time frame. And again, thank you for your answers today, and I hope we responded to your questions to us as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much.